get started. We know you've already started. You've had a chance to just kind of chit-chat, socialize, see folks you haven't seen in a while, eat some refreshments. So we are getting ready to go into the program portion of our event today. And I just want to start by saying welcome to everybody and thank you for being here. Today is... anytime we do an OLLI event, it's a wonderful time. And I'm always motivated and excited and inspired. And today, maybe even a little more so. I've seen so many people. Now, some of you know I've been at Western for forever, like when I was a baby. And that is no joke. And I've seen so many people today who have connected with OLLI, who have retired from the university, and I'm excited that they're here. So I say thank you. You know, it's just exciting for me. And then everybody else, even if you didn't retire from Western or even if you're still working, I love you the same too. It's just that these are people that I have really spent a lot of time and energy. We worked on projects together. We worked on, bringing students into the university and trying to ensure their success. And we fed some of those students, right, Ted? So just thank you, everybody, for being here. With that said, today is really all about coming together, doing exactly what you're doing now, but also hearing about the different courses that are being offered this semester. And a shout out to the curriculum committee for putting together 90 courses this semester. Thank you. The feedback about the course offerings has been amazing. So thank you to the curriculum committee. But of course, if we didn't have instructors, we wouldn't be able to do this. So we want to thank everybody who's an instructor. And if you don't mind, if you don't mind waving your hand or standing up if you're an instructor, so we can thank you for being here. And if you have not had a chance to speak to instructors, they are across the way, and you'll get a chance to speak to them at the end of this talk. So the last thing I want to say before I introduce our speakers is, and Sharon, I know you probably have some marching orders and something you want me to say. If I missed that, let me know. But one of the things I want to make sure you know is that OLLI is a membership-driven organization, and the Osher Foundation expects us to have 500 members, and we are so close. Some of you have brought friends to OLLI. I spoke to, is it Barb over there? Thanks to Sylvia for bringing Barb. And Barb said she didn't know what to do after she retired. I told her we have lots for you to do. And where's Miss Shiner? I don't know. She's new to OLLI. She came to the new member gathering. So we have plenty for you to do. And the thing is that some of our members, again, they came to OLLI because another OLLI member brought them to OLLI. So with that said, if you have a friend that you have been trying to coax and prevent and you want to do something for them today, you can purchase an OLLI membership for them. And we have beautiful gift boxes. Here's an example. And it does have something inside it. So we have probably about 25 of these available. You can buy, it could be a birthday gift, a belated holiday gift, whatever you want it to be, or just because I love you. So I'm just going to ask you if you are interested. They're at the table. And I'm making light of it, but we do want to find ways to engage our members or new members. And the last thing is, just once again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I know usually I say I don't speak for people. I try not to, but I do want to speak for Madison and Shannon, if they don't mind. We all thank you, because without each of you, no matter what you do, we would not be able to stand before you, and we would not be able to do this event. So thank you. You don't have to.
I don't have to start.
Okay. All right. Two things. I forgot. I just said I wasn't going to say any. I was going to move on. But I do want to make sure, and I'm going to ask you to please, please, please acknowledge the Kalamazoo Community Foundation. This year, they have already committed sponsorship for January Thaw and Taste of OLLI. So please, let's just acknowledge them. So without further ado, I get to introduce three amazing people. One has been my friend since, oh my goodness, Ann. We go back to elementary school when our kids started kindergarten together. I mean, and now these doggone kids they're 30. I'm not 30 years older, but they will be 30 this year. And then we have Dale Brown, who I met a couple years ago, Dr. Dale Brown, because he came doctor last year. And then we have, and it's Dr. Ann Miles, and it's Mr. McGuire Hidden. So don't come yet. These three people are amazing. And today you're going to hear them talk about the Higher Education Justice Involved program. I've been saying initiative, but it's justice involved. The university has had a relationship since 2017, and they've done education for members that are incarcerated. They've done classes. But in 2023, and if I'm giving credit, if I'm giving you credit and you don't deserve it, you can say that when you come up here. But in 2023, the university, and I'm really thinking in part because of these three people, and somehow they came together and they said, we're interested in taking the lead. And in 2023, they began to formalize this program with Western Michigan University so that those individuals who are incarcerated can pursue a liberal arts education. And they can receive a college diploma. These men are a part of the Lakeland Correctional Facility. They are admitted to the university just like I was. I had to apply. They had to prove that they were worthy from an academic perspective, that they could be a part of this program. They take regular semester courses from faculty from Western Michigan University. They're taking all types of courses. They're thinking, they're writing, they are motivated, they're engaged. And I've had a chance to see it up close and personal because my husband and I have been privileged, thanks to these three, to go in and to teach a course or to be part of a course that's taught. And so my heart always goes out to anybody who is challenged. No matter what the challenge is, I feel like people deserve an opportunity. And through the Higher Education Justice Involved, we have this program that's connected to Western Michigan University. So Dr. Ann Miles, Dr. Dale Brown, Mr. McGuire Hidden are here to talk about the program today. And I just want to say thank you in advance. And if you wouldn't mind just giving them an applause, and they will just come on up. I don't know if you all need that or not.
I don't either. Let's leave it there. Just
okay, I'll move my computer. Yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
Oh, please tell them whatever you want them to know.
Okay, yeah.
Tony, you just want to keep going?
Yeah, that's actually it. That's the whole presentation.
I'm going to go on the scuba chair. Okay. I'm going to stand right behind you and make fun of you while you talk.
I didn't spend 8 hours on this PowerPoint for no reason. Yeah, we're all going to introduce ourselves still.
No, I think it's been done.
Okay, Tony did that part too. Yeah, look, as Tony said, my name is McGuire Hidden. I just graduated from Western with an MA in last April. Now I work full-time for the university in the Center for the Humanities and help coordinate both our speaker series in the center, but also the Higher Education for the Justice Involved program. Today, we're going to talk about higher education in prison and lifelong learning, right? That's what we're here to kind of talk about and to engage in. And I think that's a picture of a bunch of you, all in a parking lot off of Interstate 94 before we traveled to WMU Coldwater, also known as Lakeland Correctional Facility, and had a wonderful event that we'll talk a little bit more about after we fill in some of the details about the program. First, Dale's going to fill in some of the details. Dr. Brown, sorry, is going to fill in some of the details about the landscape of the prison population over the last 40 to 50 years, and why we're so motivated by this project.
Oof, very cool. I'm going to stand on this and address you this way. Sorry, I only do this if I can be as unhinged as I am in my waking life. Cool. Thanks so much. Tony really should have just kept going because she was doing a great job, and it was more fun to watch her talk than for me to say things to you all. January thaw. Very cool. I have no idea what that means. It's very cold. I feel cold in the cavernous recesses of my soul. But I do want to give a shout out to my neighbor, esteemed OLLI affiliate Mary Dowd. I have two boys, 5 and 8, and this is a worthy digression, I promise you, at least it is for me, 5 and 8, and who frequently in the summer find their way into Mary's backyard, right? So you can picture Mary and her partner Bob trying to enjoy the summer weather, and then 2 little tornadoes blast in, and they're doing cartwheels, and Bob and Mary are like, those are excellent cartwheels. But we all know that those are subpar cartwheels. If I'm being frank, they are just shit cartwheels, but they say it anyway. But I haven't seen Mary in a while, and I'm wondering if the thaw part is, maybe Mary coming out of hibernation. Is that what they're talking about with the thaw, that they roll folks out for this? Because if that's the case, sign me up. How do I do that? It's a dumpster fire out there, okay, so I want to talk about something a little bit more positive, like prison, briefly. Okay, that's the funny bit. Now the facts, the knowledge. Listen, we have the highest incarceration rate in the world, folks. We are world leaders in the incarceration rate and the number of people incarcerated. We have 5% of the world's total population. 25% of the world's prison population. So in the 70s, we had about 300,000 people incarcerated in the United States. That number rose to above 2 million in like 2015, 2017, and then came down just a little bit to 2023, 2024 numbers have about 2 million people. That increase is driven by a lot of things. So briefly, let me just say some of them without describing anything in great detail. We got tough on crime, especially in the 90s. And this led to sort of long and indeterminate sentences. You've maybe heard of something like a 3 strikes law, where the third time you do a thing, whatever that thing is, that sends you away for a very long time. Even if that thing was, say, a robbery of sorts, right? You stole something for the third time, you're going away. Okay, and we're not judging this, by the way. We're just noting what's happening with the laws. We have disproportionately harsh drug laws. Whatever we may think about drugs, the disproportionate part is that it's affecting certain classes of people rather than other classes, right? So if you happen to be black and brown, the laws that are written are not in your favor. We're just talking lately about that. There are the collateral consequences of convictions. So let's say you serve your sentence. You were sentenced to 10 years for something. We might hope that after those 10 years, you could just sort of move on. Hopefully you've made some improvements. But these collateral consequences are such that beside the challenges of participating in democracy, of voting, of getting a house, of getting a job, you also have a sort of lifelong stigma that's attached to you because of that conviction. We have, in some cases, unchecked prosecutorial power. So we have prosecutors who are elected in some cases, appointed in other cases, convicting people at the county level and sending them to a state prison. So you could see where there's maybe a lack of accountability there. And so in all of this, there's just a dearth of social support services, right? We can easily imagine sort of a lack of educational opportunities, a lack of employment opportunities for certain populations, and so on and so forth. So that's a sort of national look at at mass incarceration, our program, our project, Higher Education for the Justice Involved, sits right at the intersection of mass incarceration and higher ed, right? That's where we come in. In Michigan, we have about 53,000 folks incarcerated. That's total. The state prison system is something like 40,000. We're at one particular state prison where there are about 1,400 people. And we serve some small number, maybe 41 exactly, McGuire says from behind me as I'm talking. So just briefly, since the graph is there, let me just say, most of the folks, this is the national sort of look at our incarcerated population. Most of the folks are in state prisons. Note that most offenses are violent offenses. So if we have this idea that most people who are incarcerated have committed some low-level nonviolent crime, that's not exactly right, right? And I'm not saying that should condition the way we think about people. Certainly not saying we should think of them as monsters. It's just a bit of the complexity, right? And says something about the context of this population, of the population with which we work, with whom we work. And I'm now going to push this button, which advances to the next slide, so I don't have to say anything else. Here we go. That's not the right one. I'm gonna back away. I'm gonna back away slowly and pretend this never happened.
Yeah, I think I'm up next anyway, so this will work. We have a question about what to do with 2 million people that we house. And our answer, again, as Dale pointed out, for a really tiny portion of these 2 million people, is to offer them the opportunity for a college education. Dale, this is all Dale's fault. There it is. We think that college and prison makes sense, and it's really easy for us to sit up here and talk about it. Fortunately, we also have the backup of some really large-scale studies. The first one of kind of notoriety recently was done in 2013 by the Rand Institute, and so we'll reference some numbers from that. And then also the Mackinac Center has this policy brief that is a really robust kind of high-level analysis of estimates of costs of incarceration, estimates of costs of education, and kind of a study about the return on investment that we get. And so we have some claims supported by this data. So 40% of people are reincarcerated. This is what recidivism is. They are reincarcerated within 3 years of their release. So whenever we talk about this return on investment number on this slide, the number one way that that happens is whenever we educate people while they're incarcerated, that recidivism rate goes down. So we save money because we don't have to incarcerate them. That goes down by about 13%. That's actual percentage points, not 13% of the number. It's like 43% less. We have the number from Rand that we like to throw out is that for every dollar spent on educating people while they're incarcerated, we save something like $4 to $5. And so this is a pretty good value proposition. It's not just a good value proposition for college, by the way. We have these other educational programs, adult basic education. The Michigan Department of Corrections, for example, is the largest GED provider in the state. We also have vocational education. The Michigan Department of Corrections, again, is leading in some sense with vocational villages that are popping up across the state where everybody incarcerated at a facility is getting some kind of vocational training. And we'll touch a little bit on why we don't do that, but we love that it exists and support it. And then you can see the ROI for the return on investment for college. It is the lowest, but that's because it's the most expensive, and also because it gives return on investment in some non-monetary way. So it lowers recidivism by the highest percentage. You can see in this little graph, or you can't see because it's tiny, and Anne was right, and I should make it bigger.
So sorry.
I'm not that sorry. No, sorry.
Very sorry.
2 out of 3.
Okay, this is what we're like all the time, by the way. You can see that adult basic education goes down by about 3%, secondary also about 3%, and then about 4% for vocational. And we have this huge jump to this 13 percentage points that I was talking about. There's also an increase in employment, right? So it's about a 13% increase in employment opportunities post-release. And then there's also the biggest increase in wages earned is through college education. And so the return on investment captured by that 61% isn't quite accurate, as the Mackinac policy brief actually states fully, even though the return on investment measured how they measure it is the lowest, the impact is the largest in college education. Now I'm going to turn it over to Anne to talk about the other factors. And we're going to play musical chairs.
Well, before I start, I want to say two things. First, I've taught for 35 years, and this is the most glorious podium I've had the pleasure of standing behind. Do I need this? Do you need to see my face better? Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I want to say before I hit these slides is, and I'm only bringing this up because Tony brought it up, and I want to make sure that credit goes where credit is due. It was Dale who really started this program. So it was during the pandemic. The center was sort of, looking for something new to invest in their energies. And we decided to do a 18 credit certificate program based on Dale's work, right? So he was our complete inspiration for this. We did find out that we can't do a certificate program, which is, I thought, this is great. We can handle this. We'll be able to do 18 credit certificate program, no problem. Well, we find out that we can't do one. And I still believe to this day that Dale knew this all along. So now we're doing a 122 credit BA program instead, which is a whole nother deal. All right, so I'm tasked with these other factors. Some of these are factors that are a little squishier, a little harder to pin down statistically, but nevertheless exceedingly important. One of the things that has been noted, there's an institute called the Vera Institute that studies mass incarceration. And what they have found is that prisons that have college education programs have fewer incidents of violence within them, which means that the prisons are safer places for correctional officers and also for other incarcerated individuals. We've seen this, I think. When people are really busy studying, there's less time to be engaged in other things. And I think that there's spillover effects as well as, and students have told us, they're reading a book and someone who's not engaged in the program at all comes up to them and says, "What are you reading?" And then wants to read the book. And then they start talking about it, right? So they're engaged in other sorts of things and other ways to resolve conflict. These last ones are really the squishy one: personal growth, community involvement, and generational impact. But they're the ones that, for me, are the most poignant and the ones that resonate most with me as an educator for 35 years. So personal growth. Most of our students come from unspeakably difficult backgrounds. They have single parent families most of the time. Many of those families are heavily engaged in drug and drug abuse. They've been evicted. They've had violence within their homes. They've lived in cars. They've been abandoned. They've circled through the foster care system. They have gone to very poor schools, public schools in inner cities. This program is the first time that they've had an opportunity in their life, right? This is the first time they've had a chance to be something other than what that neighborhood and those life circumstances had circumscribed for them. So what happens is this first opportunity creates a moment for them to transform their sense of who they are. So they move from being a prisoner, an inmate, to being a student and a scholar. And that transformation is something that begins to be deeply embedded in who they are, but that transfers to all of the various networks and places that those people go through or interact with. So that includes the prison and outside of it. Success in college breeds self-confidence. It breeds a sense of self-worth. As students begin to develop this sense of confidence and self-worth, they start to think about problems differently and how to solve problems differently. And so we have seen our students interacting with or heard, we don't see this, but we hear their stories of interacting with their families in different ways. One of our students a year ago talked about a conversation he had with his niece who was embroiled in some problem at school. And he said, usually I'm just reactive to this. I would just react and tell her something. But we slowed the conversation down. We picked apart the various pieces of it, analyzed them, and then talked about what could be done about it. He was transforming, and along the way, transforming his relationships with the people that are around him. Then there is, again, as an educator for 35 years, the thing that most inspires me, which is the long-term generational effects of what we're doing. So we know, for example, that kids whose parents go to college are far more likely to go to college, and they're far more likely to be successful in college. On the other side, we also know that the children of incarcerated people don't think big. They don't see their lives as ones filled with opportunities that they can tackle. And so they often don't consider college, maybe drop out of high school. It's not a good picture. And so what we're able to do here is to hopefully change that equation to some extent and turn that role model that they are as parents into one of a college-educated parent. Let's see. Our students talk quite a bit about how college has impacted their relationship with their families. And this is the piece that I think can't be measured, but fills my soul. Their families are starting to be proud of them, proud of their accomplishments, proud of what they've been able to do in the most difficult of circumstances. And then that encourages their own children, their nieces, their nephews, their siblings to follow suit. And then finally, ultimately, they take this into their communities, that confidence, that sense of self-worth, those skills, communication skills, writing skills, analytic skills, problem-solving skills. They bring all of those back into their communities and become active, vibrant members, productive members of their communities. So I'm going to stop here, but before I do, I wanted to read something from one of our students. So at the last day of class last semester, I had them write, it was after their first full year of classes, write a self-reflection on their intellectual growth, and we got this one. Thinking about my own intellectual development this past year, I've been surprised at the growth I've seen within myself. I started this program unsure of myself, with a wish to do better. I never actually sat and thought I had or have changed. That is until I was speaking with my parents on the phone about some of the papers I had been writing. They asked if I would mind sending some of my already graded papers home so they could see what I was doing. The response I received after they read them was unexpected. They said that they were amazed at the skill in which I wrote and the thought process that went into each paper. This praise meant a lot because being a student, I do not sit and contemplate each paper. Usually by the time I'm done writing one paper, I'm off concentrating on the next assignment. Stopping just for a moment allows the student, me, to appreciate the growth that has happened within this short amount of time. As for the intellectual skills I'd like to get better at, I would honestly say everything. I still feel like an imposter, faking it until I make it. I always feel like my writing could use work so that I am able to write like what I imagine a college graduate should write like. I'm typically a quieter person. Each class taken has helped me become more outspoken than the last, even if sometimes a professor had to pull it out of me. And I remember doing that. I'm working on it, I promise. I'm excited and encouraged to see what the next year brings. So I'm turning it over. I don't know to whom.
How do I make it really open? Click it?
Yeah.
Click it or take it.
Click it on the right side. Yeah, there it is.
This one? Okay. Very cool. The first time I was up here, this is a very fun sort of rotation that we're doing, by the way. I blacked out. But now I'm back and I'm conscious of what I'm doing, and the ability to feel and express gratitude has returned incredibly. So once again, thank you. No, for the first time, thank you, Tony and the OLLI folks, for having us out. This is incredible. Thanks, Anna McGuire, for putting up with me, for listening and arguing with and guiding and crying with me as we work through this journey together. I said the wrong version of this yesterday, and it was way funnier than what the truth is. What did I say yesterday about it's long? I said yesterday, it's long since just been me, which sounds like I've just been doing this thing by myself forever. Which is not true. It's long since. What's the right version? Help me out.
Not been just me?
Yeah. Okay. I've had folks help. What's the right version?
It's long since.
All right. Here's the distinction. I'm going to quiz you on this later. It is long since.
It has been just me.
It has been just me. This feels like we're in an English class right now, and I'm getting a little bit nervous about it, to be honest. I'm grateful to be on this journey with these wonderful people. That's what I want to say. Another worthwhile digression, I promise you, if only for myself. All right, so we've said much of this. I'm going to blow through it. I had this idea percolating as I was moving through this program that McGuire mentioned earlier back in 2018, this philosophy master's degree program. I thought, wouldn't it be cool to do this philosophy stuff in prison? And then I did the Google and I was like, I'll just find the person at Western Michigan University who does this and I'll just ride their coattails forever. But that person didn't exist, unfortunately. And so I came out of a grad seminar one day and I said to the philosophy professor, I said, hey, Fritz, how do I do this? And he was like, I don't know. Let's sit down. And then so since then, it's been this journey of figuring out how to do it. And we are still very much figuring out how to do it. Tony mentioned this briefly, there was a pilot program of non-credit bearing courses from 2018 to 2020, which was shut down by the pandemic. That was very sad. But then we had this opportunity to sort of pause and reflect on what this program could look like. The pilot sort of was my proof to people, especially at the university, that this was something that could happen, that this was beneficial in so many different ways. And so I met Anne and agreed to take this on and direct so much of the University Center for the Humanities resources toward this project, for which I'm still grateful. And then we started. We went through our first application cycle, and admitted students to our newly minted 5-year BA program. The name of the degree is the worst name that I could imagine, but we're working on changing it. So I'm going to say it. It's called the Student Plan Major. They're going to get a piece of paper, if we don't change it, that says Western Michigan University Student Plan Major. It's an interdisciplinary liberal arts degree that is full-throatedly rooted in the humanities. That's what we do. So we have 45 students. We've taught 15 courses so far. 21 students, over 30 credits already. How'd it happen? Just like my kids are 5 and 8. What the hell? And I'll let them say more about this, but it certainly transformed us, right, as people and the culture and spirit in which we go about our business. But I think we can say that it's also done that for the prison. Here's one example. We have a gentleman who's he's employed by the Michigan Department of Corrections. His job is to help us do college in prison. He's a 20-year MDOC veteran, so he's been in prison for 20 years and he's probably about my age, so he got out of high school, went right into a prison as a corrections officer, and now he's doing this thing. You think he might be pretty jaded, and in some cases he is, but there have been times where he's at least brought me to tears with the sort of kindness, the ways in which he's come to think about this project of doing college in prison, the ways in which he's come to think about doing his job. I had a student in class, an older gentleman, his name is Danny, he's about 67. He got new glasses and the lenses kept falling out. So he's sitting there trying to read, imagine this, and then boop, lens falls out. My man can't see. I don't know how to fix glasses. I'm not an ophthalmologist, although I've thought about going to the school for it. And I mentioned this to this gentleman, this MDOC veteran, Mr. Daniels, and he said, I share an office at my other institution that I work at with the eye doctor here. Let me just take the glasses and fix them. And he did. And so he came back, gave the glasses to Danny, and there Danny is with tears in his eyes that this other person did this kind thing. And that is one example, right? And it seems so small, but the accumulation of those examples, I think, are what make this project for me incredibly meaningful and valuable. I'm going to go away again, backing away slowly, as always.
He really is like this all the time. Look, there's we think that we do something a little bit different than a lot of college and prison programs. A lot of people are focused on the vocational training, are focused on a very kind of narrow degree path like business, even something like social work that is like aimed at a career, a particular thing that they're going to do. And I've written something that I'm going to read so that I don't stumble all over myself. But that's what I'm going to try to express, right? There's this approach that we're taking that we think is particularly impactful, particularly kind of foundational for just going about the world as a human being. So I'll read that for you now. It's on my phone because I didn't grab it from the printer as we left. After Ann, Dale, and I prepared for this presentation yesterday, I realized I'd been assigned a daunting task: to capture what it is that we do when we drive 1 hour to Coldwater, Michigan, spend 3 hours inside of a prison, and drive 1 hour back. Well, maybe not to capture what we do. That's easy. We teach people. So maybe it's more accurate to say that my assignment is to make sure you all leave knowing that there's something to how we go about teaching people and what we teach them that we think is essential. Assigned such a tall task, I realized I should probably write something down in order to ensure that I could articulate exactly what that is. So here it is. Our curriculum is rooted in what has historically been referred to as the liberal arts, a term that refers to a rich and expansive history of works from myriad times and people. Firmly rooted in the humanities, this curriculum is not a prescriptive endeavor oriented towards a certain career or profession. Instead, our curriculum is a direct request of our students to engage with expressions of humanity that span millennia of human struggle, of human dominance, of human suffering, joy, and longing. To each of these works, our students and instructors bring with them their entire life, their bias, their perspective, and their experiences, whatever they may be. And this, we claim, is where the magic happens. Not in the assignments completed throughout each semester or the grades reported at the end, but in the rich relational dialogue that becomes possible at the intersection of human experience and these written, performed, and recorded expressions of the human condition. Now, the question remains, what will these students do after college? We think we have an answer, and in pursuing this work, I'm basically just tied to Dale forever, we've made a bet that we're right. They'll be better parents, better sons and daughters, better neighbors, better leaders, better readers, writers, and communicators. They'll be prepared to understand and navigate their experience, much of which will be outside of their control. They'll be more empathetic and more open to the world and people around them. While we tried to capture that on the slide behind us, it's the kind of thing that's hard to capture. Prison is a brutal environment, but as was shown by what Anne shared earlier, one that is ripe with expressions of humanity and growth. So, while all of the numbers and facts that we presented earlier are important ways to represent what makes college and prison a worthwhile endeavor, even more important is the opportunity it offers for our students to engage in the lifelong journey of learning and growing, one they share with each of you. That's it. That's what we try to do. And, it's actually really hard. I know I made it sound so easy right there. But it is really squishy, like Anne kind of said, really soft, and it moves around, and it's a little bit elusive, and it kind of just shows up at these times, and we have to kind of grab onto it and see where it takes us. And I think being open to that is the crucial aspect that we ask both our instructors, students, administrators, directors to do. You can see this attempt to capture it here. We want them to think, read, speak articulately, and they do that, as you note from what Anne shared. We want them to be able to do things like break down what problems are going on in their niece's lives, or what they're being told by somebody that they share a cube with, a cube being the room they live in. We also think that we have an elite college education program. Notice there was no prison in that. We don't aim to be an elite college and prison program. We aim to be an elite college program, and our coursework matches that. They take 3,000 and 4,000 level courses in their second year. They take courses that push them, like beginning acting. Imagine trying to take a beginning acting class in a prison environment. And they do it. It's incredible. And in doing this, we hope to accomplish roughly 4 things. We want to foster cognition. This is that thinking stuff that sometimes people do, sometimes not. We want to cultivate their character. We want this kind of identity shift that Anne mentioned about going from a prisoner, an inmate, a failure, a monster. Dale said that. People think of them this way. And we want to cultivate their character into being fathers and brothers and students and college graduates and all of these things. Promote democratic citizenship. We want them to go into the often broken context that they come from and be able to participate in a way that elevates their community and those around them. And this is important. We kind of struggle with how important it is, whether or not it should be the main goal. They need to make money. You need money, you need food, you need a house. And so we want to prepare them for economic contribution, right? We want to prepare them to be able to do whatever job is going to be required of them. And we think that by being able to speak and write and read at the highest level, they'll be able to do that. That's my bit. Anne's going to share one more thing, I think, to close it out. And then I think we have time for like one question that has to be the best question anybody's ever thought of.
We thought it might be a good idea to end with our students and our students' voices. So this is, again, another reflection on intellectual life or intellectual journey. Reading for me over this past year is different. Reading for me over this past year is different. I read with more intention and purpose, wanting to understand not only the article, but the punctuation the author is using to help my writing skills. I read with a pen now. Every book I own has notes in the corner with underlined words and sentences. My vocabulary is also increased, not only when I speak, but in my writing as well. I make it my duty to look words up I do not know. I used to be a little nervous when talking in front of people. I think it was a confidence thing, or afraid that people are judging me. That has subsided a lot. I even facilitate a self-help class called Personal Enrichment. I found the courage to get up in front of people and teach them something. Since my concentration when reading has increased, I can read magazines and newspapers faster, and a lot more information sticks. I'm able to have a conversation about what I read and break down important facts. And when I read something, if I don't understand it, I will stick with it until I do or come back to it later. I've learned how to schedule my time and organize what is important. I missed out on a lot of conversations with people, phone calls to family, and football games to finish homework. But I would not change it for the world. Time is my best friend. I believe that in the future I will have my doctorate degree haven't made up my mind yet, but I'm going with either philosophy, sociology, or economics. Overall, I can read, write, and articulate better than last year. That is a win. And then there's one more that's just something a student wrote, but I think it's the best way to end today. It's called Looking Forward. Lots of metaphors here. Our students love to talk in metaphors. I've learned to look at today as if it's a newborn baby and tomorrow as if it's pregnant with its own baby. In my mind, today starts out as a newborn baby birthed to the world. Then, as the day progresses, it turns into a child, then a teenager, then an adult, until it becomes elderly. Unfortunately, today has to eventually die for tomorrow to be born. So I've learned to swaddle today as if it's an infant that needs my nurturing, and to teach today as if it was a child. I've learned to let today's mistakes be a lesson and a cautionary warning as the mistakes would be to a teenager. But I've also learned things from wisdom of today as if it were my elder. Today and I have a relationship full of life that will eventually be saddened by death. But with what I've learned from today, I will be able to raise a better tomorrow. I will be able to listen more attentively than ever to tomorrow, and I will learn tomorrow's lessons even more passionately, so I can teach all of my tomorrows with more wisdom. Looking back, I've had some great todays, but looking forward, I know I'll raise some even greater tomorrows.
Thank you. You all know how I feel about you all, and you know how I feel about they know how I feel about them, and they know how I feel about this program, even though I'm not as intimately as involved. One of the things, our senior readers, as you know, it was mentioned earlier, they had a chance to perform last year for these students. And it was amazing. They did about 3 plays. I can't remember how many, but the talk back was for about an hour and a half, and it could have went on even longer. So our senior readers, if you could raise your hand if you participated in that last year. It was amazing. And then last year, again, my husband and I have had 2 opportunities to go and share space with these gentlemen. And when we left, Ann had them write something, and she actually sent me and shared with me the letter that they wrote, or one of the students wrote. And what they wrote about was the relationship that they saw between my husband and I. And I have 2 people particularly in this room, and that's Yvonne Payton and Mary Kay Roberts, who know my OLLI. My husband's name is OLLI. They know what that relationship looks like, and we are comical together. But the fact that we went in and presented together, it also showed them what relationships can look like. So anyway, we were privileged, and we look forward to being able to go back. Ann's trying to get my husband to commit to teach a whole semester. He said he would. He just said he didn't say when. So we just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And of course, anything that we can do. And we look forward to our senior readers going back. And even one of the staff said that there will be the opportunity, so we will hold them accountable together. So thank you once again. You guys can do something for me.
Reed's on it. Reed also went to the prison. Tony, Shannon, Sharon, Madison, all the other people, one round of applause. I love OLLI so much. It's been so much fun to be a part of this community, to teach classes. Tony's been so helpful. She reviews applications for us. She's so supportive. She helps us come do things like this so we can tell people about it. So, and I know Sharon does so much for event planning, so this wouldn't happen without her. Shannon does everything. Shannon does everything. Is that right, Tony? Madison deals with all of my questions whenever I have issues, which is also incredible. So 10 out of 10.
So I know it's a love fest going on right now, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I just want to say to McGuire, he actually is part